For 8 years, my parents treated me like I didn't exist, and that kind of silence doesn't happen by accident. It's not forgetting to call. It's not being busy. It's a choice. A deliberate decision to erase someone from your life because they didn't fit the version of the story you wanted to tell the world. When I say they treated me like I was dead, I mean it literally. No calls to check if I was alive. No texts on birthdays. No happy holidays. No acknowledgement of milestones, struggles, or wins. It was like I vanished overnight, and they were perfectly fine with that. It didn't start slowly. It wasn't a gradual drifting apart. It was instant. Clean. Brutal. The day it happened is burned into my memory. I had finally said no. No to marrying the guy they picked because he was safe. No to taking the cushy job my dad arranged through one of his golf buddies. No to shrinking myself so my younger brother could stay the golden child without feeling threatened. I wanted something different. I wanted to build my own life on my own terms, even if that meant struggling. And the moment I made that clear, everything changed. They didn't yell. They didn't argue. They didn't even try to convince me. They just stopped talking to me. Cold. Clean. Immediate. One day I was part of the family. The next day, I was gone. At first, I kept expecting it to be temporary. I thought maybe they needed time. Maybe they were just mad and would cool off. I checked my phone constantly, waiting for a message that never came. Every unknown number made my heart jump. Every holiday felt heavy, like I was bracing for something that didn't happen. Weeks turned into months. Months into years. 8 years is a long time to be invisible. During those years, I built my life from nothing. Not the inspirational, Instagram version of from nothing. The real one. The uncomfortable one. The one where your apartment is so small you can touch the kitchen sink from your bed. The one where you count groceries down to the dollar. The one where you work late not because you're chasing passion, but because rent doesn't care about your feelings. There was no safety net. No one to call if things went sideways. No family money. No fallback plan. Just me. And a stubborn refusal to fail. I worked jobs I didn't love so I could fund the thing I did. I learned fast. I messed up. I fixed it. I learned again. Nights blurred into mornings. Coffee replaced sleep. Doubt showed up daily, but quitting never did. And every once in a while, the silence would hit me out of nowhere. Like on my birthday, when my phone stayed quiet all day. Like on holidays, when coworkers asked, "So, what are you doing with your family?" Like when I got my first real win and realized there was no one to share it with. At some point, something shifted. I stopped checking my phone on holidays. Stopped expecting messages. Stopped explaining my absence to people who asked questions that hurt more than they realized. The ache didn't disappear. But it dulled. It became background noise instead of a sharp sting. I learned how to live without them. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. And then, one random Tuesday morning, everything cracked open again. I was halfway through my day when my phone buzzed. Mom. Just her name on the screen. No warning. No lead up. Just that. For a second, I honestly thought my phone was glitching. I stared at it like it might vanish if I blinked. 8 years of silence, and now this? I didn't open the message right away. My heart was pounding too hard. All those old feelings rushed back at once. Confusion. Anger. Hope. Suspicion. When I finally opened it, the message was short. Family Christmas party at 6:30. We have something important to discuss. That was it. No apology. No, how have you been? No acknowledgement of the 8 years they erased me from their lives. Just an invitation. Like nothing happened. Like the silence never existed. Like I was supposed to fall right back into place without asking questions. And in that moment, I already knew why they were texting. Because 2 days earlier, my face had shown up on Forbes. Not a tiny mention buried at the bottom of a page. Not a footnote. A full feature. My company. My name. My story. My journey. The same journey they wanted no part of when it was messy and uncertain. And suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. Suddenly, I was worth inviting back. That realization didn't hurt the way it would have years ago. It didn't break me. It didn't even surprise me. It just confirmed something I'd already learned the hard way. Their silence wasn't about me failing. It was about me succeeding without their control. I locked my phone and sat there for a moment, breathing through the mix of emotions. There was no panic. No rush. Just clarity. Yeah, I'd show up. Not because I owed them anything. Not because I was desperate for approval. But because this time, I was walking in on my own terms. And they had no idea who I'd become. For a long time, I used to wonder what story my parents told about me when my name came up. I could picture it perfectly. The sad head shake, the disappointed sigh, the warning tone. I was the example. The one who went off script. The one who thought she knew better. In their version, I was probably still scraping by, still paying for my stubbornness, still learning some imaginary lesson they believed life was supposed to teach me. They never bothered to find out the truth. That silence didn't just hurt, it shaped me. Every unanswered holiday, every birthday that passed without a single message, every time I caught myself almost texting them and then stopped, all of it hardened something inside me. Not into bitterness, but into focus. When you realize nobody's coming to save you, you stop wasting time waiting. You move. You build. You survive. At first, my life was small. Tiny apartment with thin walls. A mattress on the floor because furniture felt like a luxury. Long nights staring at spreadsheets I barely understood, teaching myself systems, logistics, supply chains, all from free resources and trial and error mistakes. I messed up. A lot. Missed deadlines. Lost clients. Took hits that would have crushed me if I'd had a softer landing. But I didn't. So I adapted. I started my company quietly. No announcement. No big dream speech. Just contracts and hustle. I moved freight for small businesses that bigger firms ignored. I solved problems no one wanted to deal with. Late shipments, messy routes, impossible deadlines. I said yes when others said no, and I paid for it in exhaustion and stress headaches that never fully went away. But something happened over time. People noticed. One client told another. Another referred me to someone bigger. The margins grew. The systems got tighter. I hired my first employee and nearly threw up from the responsibility. I hired my second and third and realized this wasn't just survival anymore. This was momentum. While my parents lived 8 years pretending I didn't exist, I was becoming someone they wouldn't recognize. I learned how to negotiate without flinching, how to read contracts like weapons, how to sit across from people who underestimated me and let them talk themselves into bad assumptions. That skill alone was worth every silent Christmas. By year 5, my company wasn't just stable, it was dangerous in the best way. We were fast, efficient, relentless. I had teams operating across state lines, systems that ran without me babysitting every move. I slept better, not because life was easier, but because I finally trusted what I'd built. And the irony? My parents still thought I was struggling. They had no idea that the numbers I was pulling in made my father's old bragging stories sound small. No clue that the life they cut me off from was the very thing that forced me to outgrow them. They never asked where I lived, what I did, how I survived. They didn't want answers. They wanted comfort. And the truth would have shattered their narrative. Then came Forbes. That morning felt unreal. Seeing my name in print, my company laid out in black and white, my story framed not as rebellion but as resilience. Long pause. It hit deeper than I expected. Not pride exactly. Validation. Quiet, steady validation that I hadn't imagined the struggle, that it had led somewhere real. I didn't post it everywhere. Didn't tag anyone. Didn't send it to my family. I didn't need to. Because 2 days later, my mom's name lit up my phone. That single text told me everything. Not an apology. Not an "I'm proud of you." Just an invitation wrapped in authority, like they still got to decide the terms. Family Christmas party. Important discussion. As if 8 years of silence could be erased with a calendar reminder. I laughed out loud when I read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. They didn't miss me. They missed relevance. They missed being able to claim me. They missed telling people, "That's our daughter," now that it came with status attached. I didn't reply right away. Let the moment breathe. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the same unanswered space I lived in for nearly a decade. When I finally responded, it was clean, calm, controlled. See you at 6:30. No emojis. No extra words. Nothing that gave away my tone. Because here's the thing they didn't realize. The silence that broke me also taught me timing. Taught me restraint. Taught me that the most powerful move isn't confrontation, it's presence. I wasn't coming to argue. I wasn't coming to beg. I wasn't coming for closure. I was coming complete. And while they thought the surprise would be whatever important thing they wanted to discuss, the real shift had already happened. The balance of power had changed long before that text ever arrived. They still thought they were calling me back into the family. What they didn't understand yet was that I was walking in on my own terms. And this time, I wasn't empty-handed. Christmas night carried a strange kind of electricity, the kind that hums under the skin when you step back into a place that once defined you, but no longer does. Pulling up to my parents' house wasn't emotional in the way movies make it seem. There were no tears, no racing heart, no hesitation. Just clarity. The house looked frozen in time, same paint, same wreaths, same lights taped a little crooked along the roofline. It was like the last 8 years hadn't touched it at all, even though they had reshaped me completely. The real shift happened the moment I stepped out of the car. I didn't walk in alone, and that was intentional. Power doesn't always announce itself loudly, but presence does. When my business partner stepped out behind me, followed by my legal advisor, the dynamic changed before a single word was spoken. This wasn't about flexing. It was about signaling. I wasn't returning as the child they ignored. I was arriving as someone who moved with a team, someone whose decisions affected other people's livelihoods. The driver handing me my coat wasn't for show either. It was routine now, and that detail mattered. Inside the house, through the front window, I saw the reactions unfold in real time. My mother freezing mid-sentence wasn't surprise, it was recalculation. My father standing too fast wasn't excitement. It was nerves. And my younger brother's smile dropping? That was recognition mixed with fear. He knew instinctively that something about this equation had shifted, even if he didn't yet understand how badly. Walking inside, I kept my energy neutral. Calm, polite, steady. That composure is important. People expect confrontation when they've wronged someone. They brace for anger, accusations, emotion. What they don't know how to handle is composure backed by leverage. My mother's hug came fast and tight, overly familiar, as if closeness could erase years of absence. Her voice was sweet in a way that felt practiced. "We're so glad you came." That sentence wasn't about me. It was about relief. About opportunity. About timing. When she said they wanted to talk about something important as a family, I nodded and agreed. Saying same wasn't sarcasm. It was alignment. I did have something important to discuss. Just not what they thought. Sitting down around that table felt surreal. This was the same table where decisions had once been made for me without my input. Where my future had been discussed as if I were a project, not a person. Now, I was sitting there by choice, not obligation. That difference alone shifted the balance of power. My father clearing his throat was the tell. That sound carried years of authority in it, years of being the one who spoke first, who decided what mattered. But this time, his words didn't land the same. When he asked for investment help, connections, guidance, the mask finally slipped. The invitation wasn't about Christmas. It wasn't about reconciliation. It was about utility. My success had turned me from an inconvenience into a resource. Mentioning my brother's business struggles wasn't accidental either. It was framed carefully, softened with phrases like rough patch, as if that minimized the reality. They expected sympathy, maybe even guilt. What they didn't expect was preparation. Listening without interrupting was the most powerful choice in that moment. Silence creates space, and space makes people reveal themselves. The more they talked, the clearer it became that they hadn't changed. They'd just adjusted their angle. When I slid the folder onto the table, the energy shifted instantly. Papers don't need to shout to be loud. The weight of that folder came from what it represented, not its size. Inside were acquisition documents, clean, legal, finalized. This wasn't a threat or a negotiation. It was a statement of fact. The company my brother had mismanaged, the one they were hoping I'd help save, was already under my control. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially him. Watching his color drain wasn't satisfying in a petty way. It was clarifying. Consequences have a way of stripping people down to who they really are. My father's shaking hands told a different story. This wasn't just about money. It was about authority slipping away. For the first time, he wasn't the one with answers. He wasn't even in the room where the real decisions had been made. That loss hit deeper than any financial blow. And my mother, finally seeing the full picture, understood why I didn't come alone. This wasn't a family visit. It was a business reality intersecting with a family that had chosen absence over connection. Bringing my team wasn't about intimidation. It was about boundaries. About showing, not telling, that my world had expanded beyond theirs. This moment wasn't revenge. It was resolution. 8 years earlier, they had closed a door. Tonight, they realized I'd built an entire building without them, and now I owned the keys to one they cared about. The power shift wasn't aggressive. It was earned. And once earned, it didn't need explanation. That's what made the silence afterwards so heavy. Not anger. Not shouting. Just the undeniable truth settling in. They weren't in control anymore. And for the first time, they understood that ignoring someone doesn't stop them from becoming something formidable. It just means you don't see it coming until it's already too late. The silence after those papers hit the table wasn't awkward. It was heavy. The kind of quiet that presses against your chest and makes it hard to breathe. For a moment, it felt like time slowed down. Everyone was stuck processing the same realization from different angles, and none of them liked what they were seeing. My parents weren't looking at documents anymore. They were looking at consequences. My brother sat frozen, staring at the folder like it might explode if he touched it. His confidence from earlier was gone. No excuses. No jokes. No fake smiles left to hide behind. Just fear creeping in as the truth settled. The business he thought he still controlled was already gone. Not threatened. Not under review. Gone. That's when I spoke, breaking the silence in a way that didn't invite argument, just clarity. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush. I wasn't angry. That surprised them more than anything. People expect confrontation to sound loud. They don't expect it to sound final. When I said I didn't come for permission, it landed hard. Because for years, that's what they assumed my life was about. Seeking approval. Waiting for a nod. Hoping for an invite back. They never imagined a version of me that moved without asking. As I explained the situation, I kept it clean and professional, the same way I would in a boardroom. I talked about timelines, agreements, safeguards. How the company would keep running. How employees would be protected. How decisions had already been made. No blame. No history lesson. No emotional receipts. That was intentional. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries. I could see it hit my mom first. Her face shifted as she finally understood why I didn't show up alone. Those people with me weren't guests. They weren't for show. They were there because my life now required structure, protection, and witnesses. My dad looked smaller somehow. Not weak, just stripped of the authority he'd always assumed he had over me. For the first time, he wasn't leading the conversation. He wasn't guiding the outcome. He was reacting. And my brother, the favorite, realized something brutal. Being chosen doesn't help when you're unprepared. I stood up not to dominate the room, but to end the conversation. Sitting would have suggested negotiation. There wasn't any. When I talked about the 8 years of silence, I didn't dramatize it. I didn't list holidays missed or birthdays ignored. I didn't need to. Silence speaks for itself, and they had lived comfortably inside it for a long time. The line about convenience landed like a quiet slap. Because that's what this night really was. Not reconciliation. Not regret. Convenience dressed up as family tradition. They didn't reach out when I was building from nothing. They didn't show up when failure was a real possibility. They came knocking when success was confirmed, public, and useful. And I needed them to hear one thing clearly. My life was never built as an audition. When I said I didn't build my life to earn my way back into the family, it wasn't bitterness talking. It was truth. A calm, settled truth that came from years of standing alone and realizing I could. That smile at the end wasn't about winning. It was about release. For the first time, I wasn't carrying unanswered questions. I wasn't wondering if things could have been different. I wasn't hoping for an apology that might never come. I was done. Walking out felt lighter than walking in. Each step away from that house felt like closing a chapter that had already ended years ago. I didn't look back because there was nothing left to check. Behind me were people who confused access with entitlement. Ahead of me was a life I built without them. 8 years ago, they decided I didn't exist. That decision shaped everything that followed. It forced me to grow without safety nets. To trust myself. To stop shrinking for anyone else's comfort. Now they knew who I was, not because I explained it, but because they were standing inside the results. And the lesson was simple, even if it hurt. You don't get to erase someone from your life. Then reappear when their success becomes convenient. And expect a seat at the table. Some doors close quietly. Others close with clarity. That night, I didn't slam anything. I just walked away knowing I never had to come back. If this story made you think twice, you already know why you're here. Like the video, subscribe to Secret Twist Stories, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Because around here, the truth always shows up, just when people least expect it.